everybody, and welcome to the Saaghe Fogwe podcast. Glad to be back in the studio. I've been trying to do technical stuff on my own with my producer, traveling the world and seeing places and doing great things. But it was nerve-wracking to try to, do the show by myself for 3 weeks. But we'll get used to it. We live, we learn, and it really links into the topic today about the evolution of media, which is what we're going to talk about today, how media has evolved. But we're going to talk to someone special about this, one of my special aunties, and one of those people who just radiates. You meet her, she just lights up a room with her smile. I'm yet to see her mad. I'm yet to see her yell at somebody. And just that person that you meet her, and she just attracts you to her. So I'm very honored to have her here with us today. And I'm not going to steal the thunder from her. You get to know her once she comes on. But she's no other person than Miss Melissa Nambangi, former CRTV anchor. Welcome, Auntie.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you on this podcast.
Thank you for accepting at short notice. This was not a long-term plan, and we jumped right on it. I'm one of those people who, I don't like saying, "Oh, I'll call you," or "Let's get together." And then 2 years later, when I say that, I put it on the calendar and I make a plan right away. And so that's kind of how this came about. So we appreciate you. So for those who don't know you, let's go right into it, where you introduce yourself to people who don't know you, what you would want people to know about you, just background, where you come from, just those things that will personalize who we're talking to today.
All right, then. Well, yes, I am Nyango Melissa Nambangi. I always put the Nyango to keep in touch with my cultural roots. I am a journalist by profession, former CRTV news anchor. Also a journalist, because the difference with news anchors here is they are most of the time not journalists. So that's the difference. I have been a teacher also. I taught some back home, but I also taught here in the University of Minnesota for a few years before starting my nonprofit organization, of which I am the executive director of the Minnesota African Women's Association. My backbone is my family. I have 3 fantastic children. There's one who is, I used to call him the mayor of the Twin Cities before he moved to Dallas and then Maryland. And everywhere he is, he's almost like the mayor. And he's popularly known as Sankara. And I keep telling people, that's not the name I gave this boy. But that is what he's known as. His pseudonym, his Facebook pseudonym became so popular, people just call him that. And of course, his older sister, Labelle, and his younger brother, Sydney. And all of them, they are all young adults, young men and young women, and they are doing well, and they are taking care of their own lives out there. So it now gives me so much time to be able to chase my passion, and luckily my passion is also my work. So that makes it a lot easier for me to do the work that I do, as excruciating as it is, because it's usually more than 60 hours a week. I'm well known for coming back home and going back on the computer to keep writing, responding to emails, doing this research and that. So yeah, so that's basically about me. I'm also from the Oroko tribe, which I think a lot of Oroko people out there will be happy to know. So those are some of the things that make me who I am today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I happen to know 2 of those 3 kids very well. The younger one, I don't think we really connected that much in Minnesota.
Yeah, he was young at the
for
time.
sure.
Now he's a gentleman.
Anybody who knows him on Facebook, every Wednesday there's something interesting. Bemused Wednesday.
And mom comes in to fight on behalf of the women. If he says anything,
Yes.
Anything wrong, I'm right there to
So
bring it
media,
to
so
that.
media runs in the family.
Yes, 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 definitely, yes.
Yes, it runs in the family.
Mhm.
So we'll talk, a lot about that today. Give us some background on what drives you. I
Okay.
always ask this question to my guests
Mhm.
because before we get to the core of whatever anybody believes in, your core beliefs, there
Yeah.
has to be something that grounds you. There has to be something that keeps
Mhm.
you focused on what you do. And what is that for you?
For me, it is the pride in being who I am, being a Black woman, being an African woman, being a Cameroonian woman, knowing that there is nobody who is better than me because they're from a different country or they have a different skin tone, knowing that I am fully and wonderfully made and I have the intelligence that God gives generally human beings as such. So that self awareness and the self esteem is what really keeps me going. And the influence of my parents on my life, especially my father, who expressed so many times that he knows that girls can be really, really great and important in the world. For my personal values, I truly believe in treating people the way I would like to be treated.
Hmm.
So if you see me shying away from somebody, they did something. I just don't see somebody and be cold. No, I treat them the way I want to be treated. If I see they are being funny, okay, I take a step back. And I generally do not come forward anymore, no matter what you do. Because for me, you already put out the flares and I should just
Yes.
stay away. I also believe a lot in putting my best foot forward. So I really will not want to embark on something that I cannot do or that I will not do well. So generally, I will always accept to do things that I know I can do very well. I came out to the US as a Hubert Humphrey Fellow, one of the Fulbright programs. And one of the things we learned during that year of the fellowship was the saying that the late former Vice President of the United States, Hubert Humphrey, really took as his mantra was that I can make a difference. That changed things a lot for me because I was one of those, you know how back home, let them do something. Oh, look at that is going. Let them do something. Like who is
Who's
them
they?
to do it? So finally, I used to do that too. And even when I came out here, I would see somebody's protesting about something. People who are not even involved, they think join in the protest, and I'm like, what's their business? Why are they joining in a protest that has nothing to do with them?
Mhm.
And I slowly started to understand that it actually is everybody's business. So far as
Mhm.
there's an injustice, and the people who can have the most impact are those who are not suffering the injustice, who step in
Mhm.
to say, hey, we agree. This is so unjust. This cannot continue. So that makes me always, if I can make a difference, if I have the skills to make an impact in an area, I will jump right in and join in. Just like when the incident happened with the girls who were kidnapped in Nigeria, we were right there at the Capitol, you know, protesting and asking that those girls be brought back.
Mhm.
So I try to lead by example, and I've been in many Cameroonian and African associations and steering committee of this or steering. I was the director of this, the chair of the steering committee of the immigrant nonprofits in Minnesota for several years at one time. And I try to lead by example. And when it gets to the point where I say, well, I think us, the older people, have done enough, we should let the younger people lead now, I truly step back and I try not to interfere anymore. So let them do what they are doing, let them stumble if they can, find a way out, come and ask for advice
Mhm.
or opinion, we give them, and I truly stay back. So I try a lot to lead by example. So
Yeah.
that and the fact that I only would engage in things that I'm passionate about because I think
Mhm.
that's where I'll bring out the best of myself. Those are
Mhm.
the things that guide the way I do things.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, to hear that because you're talking about the let them do that. That's
Yeah,
very common, and I'm glad that even though you were a part of it, and we're all guilty
yeah.
of pushing it, to somebody else, but we
Somebody
have
else
to always catch ourselves and realize that we have to be
we
part
need to.
of building the community
Right,
and
right.
making a difference. And that's what this show is about too. It's about community. It's about doing something because I didn't end up being a preacher like my dad, but this is my ministry. This is my
Yeah.
way of reaching the community. And that's why when I see somebody doing something and I feel like their values align with mine, I reach out to them and bring them on the show to
Yes.
showcase what they do, in order that the community can know about it, because I might reach some 10, even 5 or 10 people that you will never reach on your
That's
own.
true.
And
Yeah.
that's, yeah, and that's the
That's,
purpose of this. So we're talking today about the evolution of media.
mm-hmm,
Before we go into it, before we go to your history, let's just define it for the
mm-hmm.
layperson out there. What is media? Because they'll ask the question, what is media?
Well, let's see, the short answer will be that media is a means of communication. And so we look at things like, especially mass communication. So when we talk of mass communication, we talk of things like broadcasting and publishing. That used to be it. But now we have the internet. And because of that also we have new forms that have developed in order to pass on the mass communication. So we used to have print, television, and radio. Those were the big three, and now we have the internet. So there are many basic, and then we have basic elements that make up the multimedia. So you do have the text, especially with print. You have the
Mhm.
text. You have images with TV. You have audio, and most of these, they include the different, more than two or three formats. You have, for instance, in print you will have the text and you have the pictures. In TV you will have the images and you will have the text as well. And then you have audio, radio, audio, and then you have the video and animation. So those are some of the most common. When you go further, you will be talking of things like voice command, audio messages, music, graphics. So there are many forms in these three main components that make up
Mhm.
the media. So that
Yeah.
basically is it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted us to, at least, like define it. So when we're talking about it, people are not like, but what really is media,
Yes, what is this?
because we
Yes,
just throw the
yes.
word out and assume that everybody knows what it means. So
Mhm.
let's go way back when.
I know, right? I don't want to say how
In
many
those
years it
days
is.
when I couldn't even tie your shoes, I couldn't even. There's no way I would
I
I would see you
know.
walk into a room and just willy nilly walk by and just be talking to Melissa Nambangi any
I
kind of way,
know. I know.
So how did you get into journalism, into media, or become an anchor?
Mhm.
And just give us some background on how that came about. Did you always know that you were going to be, in that career line, or how did it fall in your lap?
Well, that's the interesting thing. You know how back home, your parents will decide what, tell you what you should become in future. We, our dad was famous for that. Our mother usually let him take the lead. But the things he asked, well, for instance, he wanted me to be a lawyer. So luckily, my sister who comes after me became the person-in-law. She's a judge in Boya now. So that really took some weight off of my shoulders. But while I was in secondary school, I was made the editor in chief of the school newspaper. So that was Seca Baptist College. And our journal had this great name, Seca Speaks. So it was quite a thick little booklet with different things about school. So by the time I got to Form 5, I was made the editor in chief of that paper. And when it came out with all the little rubrics I added and stuff like that. One journalist did come up to me, came to Seka on a visit, and when they showed him to me, he said, "Oh, they said that's the girl who did the paper." So he was like, "Oh my goodness, have you thought of being a journalist?" And I was like, why should I want to be a journalist? Um, the power of um, negative projections on certain
Mm-hmm.
professions or women. That is what was making me not think of it. So there were all these talks about, oh, journalists, oh, those women are this and those women are that. And we see a lot of it when we become journalists, that people still come to us with those ideas in mind. Oh, she's a journalist, therefore, and when you come with that attitude, you meet if you meet someone like me, you meet a real blast of
Mm-hmm.
anger in your face for assuming about me in that manner. So that was the main reason I didn't want to do journalism. Then after a few years, it occurred to me that, wait a minute, there's so much more I love about journalism. The way it is practiced in Cameroon and other parts of Africa and Asia, even up till now, it is called development journalism. And there's a lot of derision about it from the mainstream
Yeah.
European British type people, because development journalism also takes care of the people. So you actually use it to educate, to inform. For instance, health campaigns. It's very rare to see health campaigns out here in the US, but those are a staple of development journalism. So, for instance, getting people to change to start vaccination, to save children's lives,
Mm-hmm.
eventually succeeded because infant mortality that was so high has become much better because of
Mm-hmm.
all this. And development journalism is very essential because we are from countries where we speak so many different languages. For those who are not educated in school, cannot handle standard English or proper English, whatever you want to call it. They can't handle that. They will understand if you tell them in their language. They will understand if you tell them in pidgin. They will understand if you say it in normal everyday language, not a doctor coming to talk about it, but maybe a journalist or some activist, some advocate who really wants to educate. So that is what appealed to me, because I was so affected by the fact that maternal mortality was the highest killer of women in Africa. And to see that other countries were doing so much better. So we had to start looking at ways in which we could help this. And I realized, if you were to become a journalist, you will have a whole country as your classroom to
Mm-hmm.
teach about some of these things. And that's what
Yeah.
pulled me to it. So now I knew that it was a very intense examination at the time I wrote it. I've not seen the exam recently, but at the time I wrote it, it was so intense that, me being somebody who was not fond of reading news stories, I could listen to them, but I don't want to sit and read. My dad used to read every page of Newsweek and Time magazine. But knowing that I was not that way, I thought, if you have to pass this exam, you must read every line written out there about everything going on in the world. And so that year I had to write it. I started off 12 months before buying every paper, Time magazine, news magazine, even the Reader's Digest and the Cameroonian papers. And I was buying them faithfully, like every day, reading and underlining and highlighting.
Wow.
That is how
Wow.
I prepared for the exam. And that is how there were 1,050 something students who wrote it that year. And I was the only girl
Wow.
who passed among the 21. They used to take just 21 or 23 in the school of journalism. So now going
Oh.
in was another problem, because there were all these little tricks that they used to make to reduce the number of Anglophones who could aspire to anything. So that came up, and that was a whole different fight, which I have written somewhere on Facebook. I had to write an account of that. But also in that, I can't forget the couple who helped take my letter to the President of the Republic, who was like, I really don't want any issue with these Anglophones again. At that time, there was a whole strike going on with the GCE, and Anglophone university students were on strike. And then here comes a letter from one little girl saying they are trying to keep her from going to school. So he told the late Mr. Salai, I will never forget him. God bless his memory, and his wonderful wife, who is also of blessed memory. Those two people, the way they helped to take a letter from me to the president. And Mr.
Wow.
Salai told me he's going to read it and he will respond. So don't worry. And it did take 2 weeks. The response came. So my classmates were in school for almost a month before I came,
Mm-hmm.
just because of that thing they were trying to do. We were just 5 Anglophones out of the 23 students, but still they
Mm-hmm.
still saw it as being too much. So anyway, that's a different story. And that was then. I don't know if it's,
Story for another day, right?
yeah. So yeah, so that's how come I got into the school of journalism, and my main interest was in bringing information to those of the community who could not read
Mhm.
or learn about it for themselves. So that's it.
Wow.
Yeah,
What a story.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, so you've already kind of alluded to some of the challenges.
Mhm, mhm,
Back then, what other challenges did you face in the media space?
mhm.
Um, I mean, in terms of, because I mean, we still have challenges today, but I'm trying to show that, that journey from
Mhm.
then and
Yeah.
now, what the
Yes.
difference
Yeah.
is. What other challenges did you face in that space as an anchor?
Yeah. Some of the challenges had to do with the availability of resources. Um, you need a camera. There may be like 4 cameras and cameramen and about 30 stories to be prepared. So you are dealing with that. You have this educational or informational magazine to prepare, and you need a whole team to work with. And either there's a sound technician not available, or a cameraman is not available. So technical problems were really some of
Mm-hmm.
the most severe things that could really disrupt the work you do. After you do it now, you have to find somebody to edit it. You are it wasn't easy at that time, and at this time, I think things might be a little better. I was back home and at CRTV just how many years ago? I came in 2019, so that's 5 years ago. So I did see how things have progressed then. But
Mm,
some of the problems that still exist are the cronyism, working in cliques, having people gang up and want to
mm,
keep this journalist out or keep that other one away and be the head honchos who decide everything.
yeah.
Those are usually so difficult because sometimes you really see a really good journalist, but because they are not the kind who intermingle or live the jolly life of going and having a
You
drink in
don't go
one
to
bar, you
happy
have to,
hour with the rest. You're
yes,
you're a
you
square
you
in a
see,
round hole.
yeah, you see that person being left out. So those were some of the issues that really existed, and you could decide for you could decide for yourself that, well, I'm not going to cave in and just keep doing things at your own pace.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it could be quite frustrating. Um, but yeah, so those were actually some of the things that were
Like
happening.
obstacles.
Yeah, that were obstacles at the
Mm-hmm.
time. When it came to the environment itself of like producing the news and all, you had the crew there. uh, each person, at least for the news, that was consistent.
Mm-hmm.
The cameraman had to be there, the sound technicians, everybody, studio manager, news program director, they were all there. The journalists would generally write the leads for their stories, but you always had to look over to make sure that either it is well expressed or the
Mm-hmm.
language is right, or you think there's another idea that will be better as the lead and you could redo that. So generally, that was the atmosphere in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was very difficult with being in that, especially because TV was quite new when we started. By the time I got
Mm-hmm.
there, it was only 3 years old. By the time I became a journalist, when it started, I was in school, in the School of Journalism. one of the most difficult things there was the familiarity, the way people, total strangers, feel exceptionally comfortable to just walk up to your face and ask you any question.
And
Hail your name, hail your name from across the street, and you're like, wait a minute, that's a younger person, that's a kid calling me like that.
yeah. No,
How did
no
we get to this
Nyango, not
point?
adding Nyango to the
Not
name.
at all, no Nyango, no auntie, no sister. And then when you ask, they say, oh, that's how they call you on the news. Well, are you on the news with me right now?
Exactly.
You know, how come the thing that journalists do, every viewer thinks they should do it? Have they
Yeah.
really thought of how it would feel, how they would feel if they were walking down the street and somebody just called them in that manner, and not only calling them, but actually coming to try and start having
A
some
full-blown
conversation?
conversation.
It's as if you should not even have a mood. If you're having a bad day and you are not about to tolerate that, they go and start saying, oh, she thinks she's this, she thinks. You are dealing with human beings who are growing up in a culture where one of the cultural values is that differential in
Yeah,
age, that
respect.
difference, you know. And I always think, I've had my kids' friends tried that nonsense on me. And I just thought, first, if my kid walked up to their mom and called her by her name, will they not probably fight? You know? And I'm like, how dare you? Oh, hey, that's what I used to see you in my house every day, and that's what they call you. I said, well, I've never been in your house. Do you know that? So usually, when you come with that attitude to someone, you are coming to create not an enemy. I think you're coming to create
Are we frozen? I think she's frozen while we get her back. Yeah, so we're
yeah.
talking. Okay, we have her back.
All
There she
right.
is. Yeah,
So even
you broke the internet.
I tell you, right? Not how I expected it to happen. But even here in the US, where people call each other by first name, they are not familiar. They don't do that familiarity thing. Oh, so how are you? So how are you going? So what about, it's like, wait a minute, this is, you're accosting me. That is what you're doing. You are not being friendly. You are accosting me. And especially when there's such differences and all of that. So yeah, so those were some of the things that were,
The
even until now,
challenges.
people still try that nonsense. And I'm like, boy, you don't get it. You don't get it.
One thing I was curious about back home, when you guys did the news, was did you use teleprompters? That was one
Oh,
thing that I wasn't sure about, because
yeah.
we just thought that the journalist was so smart to
We
read
actually
all of
did.
this stuff
Yeah. No,
by
we
their,
did not. We did not. The quality of teleprompters was not that good. If you tried using it, it's like three words on a line, three words on a line. If you read something in that manner, it will be very it will come out very jerky. It will not be
Mm,
smooth. Imagine reading a sentence like only three words at a time, and you don't
okay.
know what's coming next. So we generally wrote out our stuff, try to remember as much as possible,
Wow.
and try to speak. Yeah. And then for
That's
some of us who
interesting.
had, I used to wear glasses. So I no longer do because I had surgery, but it was difficult for me to even see the teleprompter with my glasses at the
Mm.
time. So we hardly a couple of people tried, they will put it there, you try, after some time you're like, forget it. And you just go back to your screen,
So you
you
had to
know.
know that stuff. So you guys were truly smart then.
we had to we had to
You were definitely smart to
yeah.
remember all that
Yeah,
material through
yeah.
the 1 or 2 hours you were on the air. So
Mhm.
comparing those obstacles from
Mhm.
from when back in the day and
Yeah.
now, looking at media right now, what
Mhm.
differences do you see? What are those things that have improved? Some of it is teleprompters have
Yeah,
improved, some of that,
yeah.
and then availability of cameras. So what other things
Yes.
do you see that from that evolution that have changed just looking at media today?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is all these advances in digital stuff. Now, I was on CRTV News a couple of months ago talking about the passing of our colleague Shashan Dimbie, and everybody thought I was in Cameroon. But they actually just called me, and I sat in my office and did a video and sent it to them, and they edited it. And that's all the power of the internet. It was actually done by WhatsApp. One of the journalists called, I just sent it to her. They sat there, they cut it up, and they put it on the air. So that whole thing about the digital world is one of the biggest advantages that we have right now. Everybody has the capacity of becoming a reporter, not a journalist, a reporter,
The reporter.
because there are certain rules you have to maintain. First of all, as a journalist, you have to have the training to be a journalist. And then there are rules you have to, the whole business of ethics is very important. So those are some things that, make you a real media person. So the availability, the ease with which, now look at the internet, WhatsApp, whatever, the ease with which you can send information across the world. Back then, if we did the story, wow. Thank goodness, I think I never tried sending a story out of Cameroon because that would have been a real difficult thing. But that's one of the biggest advantages that they have right now. The thing also is people have to know which sources to trust, because there are too many sources out
Yeah.
there. Everybody considers themselves a source because they have a camera and they have some channel on some internet format where they can tell things. So it's really important to know about to know that the fact that you have access and ease to get all these things and get this information, you still have duties. The
Yeah.
duties of the reporter. You must know, first of all, you cannot be sending out unverified stories. I think those are some of the biggest challenges that have come with everybody having their own TV or radio station by
Yeah.
themselves, that whole thing, unverified sources. Somebody
Yeah.
says this, you just run and you go repeat it. It shows us in a very poor light. It shows it causes so much trouble for each other. We have some people who just bait each other, come and just say something inflammatory about Saaghe. So Saaghe has to come and respond, and then they are back and forth. And
Yeah.
suddenly it is this fight. Sometimes people who have never ever met themselves manage to make serious enemies of people they have never met, people who have
Yeah.
never done anything to them. And then when you do that, you don't. One thing I like about being a journalist is, in spite of that familiarity and all, most of the people I've met are people who like me at that distance, it's different when people see you and they have a positive reaction towards you, that saying, oh God, look at that one. It's like being the National Enquirer and showing up when you have some serious journalists doing some relative work, and then you come and everybody knows you just lie. You just take one thing and you twist it and put it out there.
Yeah.
So those are some of the dangers.
Yeah, so the advantage of digital world actually works out. So it kind of works, the other way, depending on how we use it, because
Yes,
not everybody's ethical about
exactly.
about the
That's the
media space.
problem.
That
That's
we have
the
an advantage. Social media, we use it, like you said, for all the drama, and
yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
We try to
And
keep it
if we're doing
out of this show.
if we're doing the drama, if we're doing valid drama, that would be okay. That it really happened, and this is what, oh my God, did you hear? Oh, and then they did this.
Yeah.
But when it turns out that somebody cooked this thing up and threw it out there, and when you do that, you think, well, it's now becoming news. No, it's not. Or you think, oh, I'm so famous because everybody's saying that. No, there's a word called infamy. That's what you are. You are infamous. You are not famous. So we make those errors, and you think, some people say, oh, all publicity is good publicity. No, it's
Not
not.
always.
No,
Yeah,
it's
not
not.
always.
You have to, so you have a lot of those kinds of things going on just because it's now so easy to get access to this stuff.
To
One of the worst
everything.
things, yeah, one of the worst things is the cyberbullying that goes on. There are some channels you turn on, and the screaming from it, you actually you you have to watch your mental health and
Yeah.
avoid certain channels,
Yeah.
because just the screaming and the language, and to know that these insults are directed at a real human being, it is like, wow. First of all, like with journalism, one thing you learn is how to be humble and to know that even though you have that camera, that radio, that video, TV station at your disposal, it is not your thoughts that should be going out there. It is what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So people do this all the time. People develop a God complex, like, I will light my camera and I will tell the person what to think.
What I need, yeah. So
Can
it's
you
some
pay
kind
the
of power.
price? Can you pay the price if you meet
Yeah.
the wrong person? Because you see, our community is such that when we hear somebody is about to be punished, we all run to plead. Oh, no, 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 don't do it. Oh, just ignore. You don't know the harm you did that person. You don't know how I've seen people who have been crying that they lost their businesses because of what we do online.
Mm-hmm.
They have
Mm-hmm.
it. I sit and I marvel at how marriages are just taken like no big deal by
Mm-hmm.
total strangers coming into
Yeah.
a man's inbox to tell lies about the wife. Or take the case in Nigeria where it was like, hey, go and do DNA on that child. DNA has suddenly become the bully's weapon. A
Mm.
serious thing like that, a serious thing like marriage, which is your family.
Mm-hmm.
You may be somebody's wife, but from that minute and the children and all, you are now family. People walls in to destroy it with
Yeah.
so
Through
much.
media.
It
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
incredible, and it is very sad to see that we are developing that sort of thing. Creating scandals, blackmailing, cyberbullying. Those are the really, really negative things that have resulted as a result of digital news, um, story building capacities being at our beck and call, right in our hands. And that's sad because we could do so much better with
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, and we have a lot of talent amongst us. We have so much talent in our community. So, speak to young people, to a young person who's still thinking about journalism. They want to
Right.
go into that. They want that as a career. They want to go into the media space.
Mhm.
What would you say to a young person who's thinking about going into this space
I would
today?
say, congratulations, you want to create a better world. Because the intention of being a journalist is actually trying to do things for the betterment of the world.
Yeah, I think we're frozen again. So yeah, so a lot of people are still thinking about media. We're talking about the evolution of media from somebody who had been in it in the. Okay, she's back.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes, I'm back.
so we're going through that evolution, talking about where she's coming from, where it is today. She's here to see it, and it's good to talk to people who have been in this, in a certain career while they're here. Talk to them and pick their brains and see how she feels about it, and then also mentor young people into the same role. So my question was for about young people who are
Mhm.
still thinking about media or thinking about journalism as a career.
Yes, so I was saying, congratulations, you are choosing one of the best careers in the world. Actually, my francophone friends used to say it all the time, le plus beau métier du monde. The fifth estate, the fourth estate. Okay, so it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it has its rules. So if you are going into journalism, that's a great first step. But remember, choose your niche. There are so many things you can do and report on out there. And unless you are a news reporter who just reports current events, what is happening, you really cannot be jumping from one thing to the other. Because if you create a niche, then you develop a mastery of that niche. And
Mhm.
people start realizing that, oh, this person knows about it, knows this subject, so I should go listen to the person. There are some reporters who, if you say you are going to listen to that person for some serious kind of news, people will just laugh at you because they've been watching that person too, and they are not convinced because of the way the person um, handles their stories. So do something you are passionate about, um, because that passion is what will keep you going. Doing the same thing every day can be quite boring. But When you have a passion for a particular subject, then you can do it every day because you keep seeing something new that you can bring to the people. Always maintain your integrity. That is one big thing that is
Yeah.
lost a lot in all um, the various channels that we see out
Mm-hmm.
there, social media, internet stuff, and so on. Maintain integrity because that is what brings the people to keep watching you. And above all, to believe you. There's no point in watching something and thinking, oh, he's lying as usual. So why did you watch it? You just wasted your time. So if people have that feeling about you because you report something today, you didn't get reliable sources. Tomorrow we hear a different story. So like, oh, that person lied, and you keep doing that, eventually you lose
You
all.
lose credibility. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's something, what no one of the sayings they have that really tells us a lot about how to handle your journalism career is that ratings don't last, good journalism does. So when we are chasing, oh, everybody's talking about you, oh, that person had 1 million views because they talked about, so you jump on and you talk about
Mm-hmm.
that, and then tomorrow the story turns out to be fake or to be very destructive. So you got good ratings, but that doesn't last. It is
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you are doing good journalism.
Yeah.
And no, another thing they do say is the courage in journalism is sticking to the unpopular, not the popular.
Mm-hmm.
Stick to the unpopular because either you want people to understand it better or you want to change that unpopular thing, let it change and let it join the popular side, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and then the last thing I would say, which is, it's not actually the last thing, but very important, is always get both sides of the story. It
Yes.
If you can't get the second side, then make sure you report it in a way. Don't come and be talking with such authority over something
Mm-hmm.
where you heard only one side.
Yeah.
By the time you hear the second side, you might discover what you heard was totally false, and it
Mm-hmm.
being totally false looks bad for you also. So, and then I see a lot of confusion about public figures. I've heard people have called and say, oh, this person was saying because this actress showed her child on the internet. Oh, yes, so now the child is a public figure. Oh, absolutely not. You can't be attacking that. Celebrity has a right, like any other person, to show off her child. When we put our children out there, it's because we are showing them off. And any good mother or father has that right. Everybody who is proud of their child can show their child. But you don't now say, oh, I can talk about that child now because you put the child. Nope, the child is not a public figure. Public figures are people who have achieved fame or notoriety. And they are generally people like you have the general public figures, the government officials, you have celebrities, those are the people who are public figures. Even the celebrity's daughter is not a public figure, you know. So unless you want to be a slander paper, then you can be running and writing about children's papers, and then that you are appealing to the crass and not the class, in society. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure, because that's something that is causes so much trouble for a lot of people. I felt very affected by the cases in Nigeria where a couple will be showing off their child very happy, and somebody pops up to say, "Oh Lord, that child looks like this other man. Do a DNA."
Mm-mm.
You are really
Mm-mm.
getting into people's marriage like it's a game.
Yeah.
It's not a
It's
movie. It's a real life thing.
yeah.
And it's, oh boy,
And
it's
you can
very
change the direction of somebody's marriage just by,
just
by
by that
those,
sort of
yeah,
thing,
by putting those words out
Yeah,
there and
yeah.
just
So,
starting the drama.
so there are a couple of things to remember. Is the internet is forever, as everybody says. Just the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you take down the video doesn't mean 50 people had not downloaded that video, screenshot, done whatever with it. So it is forever.
Yeah.
You always find it somewhere. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that the you know the fact that you think you would say, oh, I reported on it, but I didn't know it was a lie. Ignorance is never been a defense.
Mm-hmm.
Even where there are laws, you can't do this, you can't do, then you say, oh, I didn't know. They will always tell you ignorance of the law is no excuse. So those are some things to always remember. There is this popular thing they talk of in most of the time in crime stories. They will say the hand of one is the hand of all. So if a bunch of people got together, created this story, did all sorts of things, you come out and you say it, all of you who were involved in making up that story are guilty. So we have to always remember that, because you always think, well, I can always say, I was just doing a story. You will meet the wrong person who will not let go, who will be, some people, all they have is their integrity. All they have is their marriage. You come and you destroy that because you just felt like making, you will meet that one person who would swear heaven and earth and you will pay for it. And most of the time when you pay for it, you are totally, you can't even lie.
Yeah. Yeah, we're having some network issues, but we're very important stuff here. Our community needs to hear this message because, or every community needs to hear this message because there's a lot. Media is there. Media is it's a good thing for us. It gives us the channels to share information, but how we use that information is very important. And how this podcast even started was it was about documenting our lives. That's
Okay.
one thing that we can use media for, to document our lives. Because this conversation I'm having with Nyango, Melissa, and Nambangi today, it will be preserved. My
Yes,
grandkids, my great grandkids will watch this.
that's right.
Her great grandkids will
Oh.
watch this too, and they'll be like, "Those are our ancestors,"
Yeah, I
having this
know.
conversation.
Yeah,
But
it's
if
good
we
to
were
have
here
something positive.
bickering and calling names and all that, I
I
don't think they'll be
know.
proud of us.
No, not at
For
all.
that,
It's our,
we're having a conversation here. We're going through the evolution of media. We're talking about something that she's an expert in. I'm no expert. I'm just here as a platform, making it
yes.
available for this conversation to happen. So really, our community needs to hear this message and know that it's very important for us to verify information. It's
Yes.
important for us before we put stuff out there. Think about how it's going to affect that person that you're putting that information out, because now everybody has access to media. Like we said, you just need a
Yes.
good phone. My phone has a very good camera. I can shoot a video
At
from
any
my phone
time. Yes.
anything and do whatever. So yeah, so go ahead, Auntie.
So yeah, speaking about what we can do as a community, it's very simple. It's always coming from to be coming from the right place. To us, we always remember that this is something you are living, that your children would see and probably benefit from. So the way we are taking this media thing, what we need to pay attention to is accountability. We have to be accountable. We have to make sure that our sources are verified. We have to make know that um, we have the freedom to make our choices, but we also uh, have to face the consequences of those choices. So we cannot just let it go. So we should try deliberately building each other up. When I see things that things that impress me in the media is when I see the community or some of these media people who decide to do good deeds. Like yesterday, I watched one where the guy, I never seen him before.
I think we're frozen again. All right. So while we're getting her back, okay, there we are.
All
She's
right.
back.
So I was saying that some of the positive things I've seen on media was like yesterday I watched a channel where the guy called all of his friends and acquaintances, come, let's go save this black woman's shop. She's not making any sales. She's at risk of going out of business. She owes this much in rent. And 150 something of them swarmed in that shop and they were like, just buy. And they bought stuff from this woman. It was incredible just to
Wow.
see that generosity. They
Yeah.
bought stuff for over $14,000. She was
Wow.
owing 7,000 for rent, so that was taken care of. Then because she was selling on commission, so there was some big company that was going to get the money from her and give her maybe a little bit. They decided to give her cash. So each
Wow.
person just dug and they gave her cash.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing cash up to her because they
Mm-hmm.
knew that she would not get much after. So this is the positive ways people are using the media.
Media.
And we
Mm-hmm.
should think of that. I know a lot of our people I've never watched any, but I know that they do giveaways, they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are great. They take care of one person at a time.
Yeah.
Some other person, instead of jumping in on the giveaway train, could say, well, let's do flash mobs. Let's look for one school in Cameroon and just send over money for benches, for tuition for the less
Mm-hmm.
fortunate, for this, and everybody just $10, $20, no limit. Anybody just
Mm-hmm.
gives what they want. And suddenly some kids who could not have attended school that year will have. There are
Yeah.
so many things we can do. Let's flash mob a clinic. Let's get this
Mm-hmm.
and that equipment for them. There are so many things we can do. So
Yeah.
we should be deliberately building each
Yes.
other up. We should be deliberately developing our community because guess what? That is what we leave for our children. And we
Yeah.
don't want them to come into some shabby community where
Mm-hmm.
there were great people from this country called Cameroon at one time,
Mm-hmm.
and the country
Mm-hmm.
is no longer there. We have to remember that. We have to remember that.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very touching words, very wise words. Any shout outs to any mentors, any people who led, who helped in this
Yeah.
journey, any
Well,
people, I know you might forget some names. Please don't be mad at her. She was put on the spot.
no, yeah, see, the thing is, it took a long time for me to decide that I wanted to become a journalist. And because TV was not yet in the country, we now came like the pioneers, the first 5 years of TV, my name is there. So as a result, when it comes to other journalists we knew who could be mentors and so on, I would always think of journalists abroad. It would be the Barbara Walters. Those are the women you saw and you're like, wow, okay. And I would love to be a news anchor. Um, for the guys back home, when you are female, you hardly think of a guy as a role
A
model.
mentor. Are you
Yeah, I
serious?
know that
Really?
the journalist who became my thesis advisor when I was in high school is one whom I was very impressed with, Dr. Francis Wete. Now he's Professor Francis Wete. I heard him as a child in Boya, heard him on
Mm-hmm.
the radio. So whenever you thought of him, you heard a lot
Mm-hmm.
of sports journalists. Because I'm not a sports person, it
Mm-hmm.
really didn't. No, they were just they were just there. But the person who had the biggest impact on me was the late Akwanka Joe Ndifo
Mm-hmm.
because of the personal one-on-one talks that he had with me.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the radio. He would come to TV once in a while. But before then, when I wrote the entrance exam into the School of Journalism, he came there and he was just sitting there. And when he saw me, he said, I'm waiting for you. I was so startled. Right? I just come out of the interviews. And I'm like, why? He said, I want to interview you. I don't know why I did not hesitate. So he interviewed me for the radio. And then what struck me was after that, my younger sister's friends went to her. Oh, your sister is so stupid. Why did she talk on the radio? Now, when she fails that exam, the whole country will know
Oh my
she wrote
gosh.
it. And and then the best part was now I passed.
Mm-hmm.
None of them came to say, oh, sorry, we we did that. But Akwanka came to me and said, I just knew. I just knew there was something about you, you know. And then after that, while I was at TV, with a lot of this cronyism, as I mentioned, little cliques going on, people
Mm-hmm.
trying to make others feel like outsiders and all. I was so bothered at one time at TV that I actually said, I really regret taking on this profession. I said, I no. And Akwanka happened to be there that day. So he just called me out of the newsroom and he said, I don't ever want to hear you speak like that
Say
again.
that. Mm-hmm.
So because what you have to understand is it is not only Cameroonians watching you. Everybody in this country, I used to have fan letters from Equatorial Guinea,
Oh,
whatever it's
wow.
called now. I used to have fan letters there because they speak a different language. Some guy would just send his picture
Oh, gosh. You had
and just,
softness.
you know. So I knew that okay, they do see us there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Akwanka talked to me and he said, you have to know that even right here in the capital city, there are so many other nationalities here and they watch, and there are so many who think you are a very good news anchor. So don't
Mm-hmm.
ever feel defeated
Mm-hmm.
again. And shortly after that, that's when I got the Hubert Humphrey Fellowship. And it was said that it was the American embassy who actually said that's one of the best news
Wow.
anchors. And
That's
so,
amazing.
yeah, so I always think of Akwanka. I'm like, oh my God, this guy really made a difference. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you think of other things, my penchant for wearing African dress came from watching Nigerian TV. I went to Nigeria on a visit a few years before going to the School of Journalism, and I noticed the channels where everybody was always dressed in their national
Mm-hmm.
traditional attire and all, and it looked so good that as soon as I became a news anchor, that is what I
That's
did.
what that was your
So
signature.
yes, so those are the three influences
Yeah.
in my career that I can think
Mm-hmm.
of: Akwanka
Yeah.
Joe before Barbara Walters and Nigerian TV.
Wow. Well, I'm glad I asked that question. I believe in mentors a lot. I believe in mentorship a lot.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
something that nobody can just,
Yes.
you have to have someone or something that, that kind of shapes who
Mhm.
you become. I am who I am today because of people along the way who mentored
Yes.
me,
Mhm.
in one way or another. And I always give back to, to people
Mhm.
like that. I always call their names and thank them for what they did for me, and I want to give back to other people and pass the torch. But
Yeah.
I do want to thank you so much. This conversation has been so enriching today. We could go on and on, but I think we'll have to have another one about your foundation, because you and I
Okay.
haven't had a chance to talk about your foundation.
Yes. Yes.
It looks like there was some questions or comments, mostly I can't
Oh,
see.
I can't see them.
my, my vision is
Yeah.
terrible. We'll respond to those comments. We'll
Great.
respond to them.
Okay.
But thank you all. Anybody who was watching, I'm sure all the Nambangis watched this show today.
I hope they did.
I
I
know.
hope they did.
I'm sure they watched today because Mama's on here. But thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here. I appreciate you for taking time and talking to us and enlightening us on media, on the evolution of media and our community. Hopefully, we'll make some changes in our community when it comes
Yeah.
to media.
Yeah. If
Based
we're
on that,
interested.
you share your foundation link with me. I'll drop it in
Okay.
the in my
Okay.
comments so people can
Sounds good.
follow and
Um,
and reach out as well. But thank you
okay.
so much. You're much
Yes, you're
appreciated.
welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. My first podcast interview. I'm so
Oh,
glad I decided to come on your show.
we feel special. We feel so special. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
You're
until
welcome.
next time, guys, this has been the Saaghe Fogwe podcast. Stay blessed. Thank you.